Okay, let's just for argument's sake say we've started. Today is uh, Saturday, July 11th. It's 9:02 a.m. on my computer, and this is the uh, PCR slash Coast Division Zoom meetup. And I haven't heard from Phil, so I assume that he hasn't gotten out on bail yet. So we would, I don't have a calendar in front of me. The only things that was sort of on my mind slightly was one more time as we did at the auction, which I want to talk about. I want to congratulate John on getting his Golden Spike Award. This is
Thank
a
you.
this is a terrific project
Mhm.
that I've been fighting with for I don't know how long for the PCR for Coast. It goes in cycles type of thing. Every so often we can get people excited and do this, and then other times we don't. So anyway, oh my God, somebody found $100, and there is Phil, and he must be out on bail. Good morning, Phil. It is now your meeting.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it, Jesse. Well, you notice I'm on my phone for some reason. I rebooted my computer and Zoom will not open a meeting on my computer, and I can't figure out why. It's just not responding at all. I don't know what the issue is. So I am going to be on my phone today. So see, I don't use my phone very much with Zoom. So, oh, there's
Mhm.
Dave. Let's see if I see this in a different way. There we go. So we're not going to have any slides or any welcome or anything today. So, and there's no formal agenda. So other than talking about that the national convention is in 2 weeks, welcome to the, let's see, this is the July 11th meetup of the Coast Division. I'm Phil Edholm. Welcome all. Like I said, my computer has decided it didn't really want to work. Oh, there we go. I think it's changing over now. Um, I have no idea what's going on here with my computer system, so I'm just going to call it. Anyway, so anyone have anything interesting to discuss this morning? I'll just throw it
I
open. We have
did
no
want to
formal agenda.
I did want to chat a little bit about the auction and see if any folks were there and what their thoughts were and that sort of thing, because uh, there's been some conversation about cutting back on the auction and that sort of thing. And now the auction is over. I was very happy, by the way, with the auction. I actually bought a couple of things. So I thought it was a great auction. But was anybody else there? John, I think you were there. No, were you? Okay. Anyway, if there's anybody there and had any thoughts about how it went and that sort of stuff,
I just want to
hold on.
say that even though I'm not a great fan of the auction, I thought this one went well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of comments about it. I mean, one is the number of items we're getting and the number of attendees just continues to gradually decline. And I don't know that it's not just a general representation of the challenges we face overall, as a community and the membership as individuals. But what we found is there were a smaller number of items. The items that were there, a lot of them were very nice items. But we were, I think, probably at about 230, 240 items. I have to go back and look at the exact numbers. Um, so from that perspective, I mean, one of the challenges I guess I would ask is why does anyone have a thought process about why we get so few people at the auction and also to some extent so few items at the auction? Is it, people don't feel they need anything for their collections. I guess I'm curious because that's the question of how do we improve the auction in terms of the number of folks coming, et cetera.
But I have been thinking about this, and I hearken back to, gosh, it must have been, let's for argument's sake say 5 years. It was definitely before COVID and that sort of stuff. And several of the other auctions, we used to do 4 a year. I remember one at the I think it was the Lions Club in the basement of some place or other in
Elks.
Alameda, and that place was packed. I mean, with people, because it was not the auction, but it was a meet at which we were going to have an auction. The same thing was true about the Boy Scout venue. It was a meet, and what made it a meet? We had one or two really good clinics. I remember one of these, Earl gave a landmark presentation on lighting or some building lighting. There was Dave did a presentation. These were in a separate room, and it was a nice little facility. Dave did something on checking over cars and that sort of stuff. And it was, you went for those those activities, and there was an auction also, which was nice. The second thing about the auction, this one was better than the last one. The last one, everything was multi-hundreds of dollars, it occurred to me. And, honestly speaking, I don't really need another $400 diesel locomotive on my layout. I did love the idea, and it was in the old days. Oh my God, there's a box full of like 24 rail cars. They're KD couplers, wheels, properly weighted, and it was $1. It was the opening bid. And there were things there that, boy, I can't wait to go to the auction. Yeah, and I don't need this stuff, but you can't pass it up. And it's going to end up being in an auction someday in the future anyway. So I think that in general, my feeling is that the auction, having the auction, we have to have the auction over here. And we don't have meets anymore.
What do you mean? So I'm going to challenge that, Jesse. We do have
Okay.
meets. We have 2 meets a year. By the way, so David left. I've been asking people for a year, someone to step up and be a clinic chair.
Mhm.
I begged people to do clinics. Have I sent out emails that said I need a clinic for the auction? Did anybody here reply to that email and say, yes, I can do a clinic? Guys, this is only going to be as good as the community. I mean, I hate to say it, but I'm going to call everybody out on this, that, it's a we should do, which boils down to what? What does that boil down to when we say we should do this? It boils down to that Phil should do it. And, I'm sorry, I didn't have time to go beg somebody to do a clinic at the last auction. If somebody had stepped forward and said, hey, I'll do a clinic, we would have had it. We have a great room there in that senior center. We've done it in the past. I did clinics at the last two auctions before this. And I kind of feel like I get to a point where it shouldn't just be Earl or myself doing every clinic. That's, if you look at the past, other than I begged Ken to do a clinic when we did the last meeting up in Richmond. Other than that, we just have had no one volunteer to do a clinic. No one steps forward. Like I said, if someone would step forward and say, hey, I'll be the clinic chair, we can work together to do clinics. So I'm sorry, I'm kind of at a point where you can kind of tell I'm a little frustrated because when people complain, well, we don't have clinics anymore, it's like, well, the we in that is just Phil. So, unless somebody wants to step forward to be clinic chair, unless people want to step forward and do clinics, me having to call around and spend hours and hours begging people to do clinics just doesn't work all the time. I
Yeah.
get tired of doing it. Every event, I have to beg to try to find somebody to do clinics. And in the end, who does the clinics? Phil and Earl. I'm sorry, guys. I'm a little bit of getting frustrated about it. I apologize for getting patrolist about this, but to some extent, unless people step up and are willing to do things,
Mhm.
there's just no way it's going to happen.
Yeah,
Bill,
Phil?
I just want to have a question to this group. It's not the largest, but I sort of like to do presentations like I did on the history of Port Costa. Um, they're sort of historical presentations related to railroads and model railroading. Is anybody interested in that stuff?
I was going to say, Ken, at the National Narrow Gauge Convention, half the clinics are historical and they go over really well. I've got several historical presentations myself I presented at those meets.
Yeah.
And I guess Phil is, I've got all kinds of clinics in the can and I'm working on some others and I'm willing to do it. The reason I don't is I model an obscure railroad in an obscure scale on that, and I worry about overexposure. Basically, is why do we
Yep.
want to hear from this idiot again? So I've been a little bit hesitant about raising my hand, but I if
As
the
as the saying goes, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. So,
yeah.
absent someone else stepping forward and doing something really exciting, something is better than nothing. So, I think I'm sorry, I really, like I said, if someone would step forward and say, "Hey, I'll be a clinic chair," when David was clinic chair, I worked with
Mhm.
him very closely, but he managed, the process of signing people up and getting it done. Now that falls back to me. And I've asked a bunch of people to do it. And everybody I ask says, "Oh, no, no, I can't do that." Well, by the way, next year when I stop being superintendent, somebody's gonna have to step up to be superintendent. So, and that's setting up the meetings, it's setting up things, sending things out, all those
Mhm.
activities that get done, you add on to that doing the clinic is just a bit too much. So I'm sorry, I'm reacting, but I hear this all the time, the we, and in the end, there's not a lot of we.
I think that's valid, Phil. And I appreciate all you've done, and I'm sure everybody does. Um,
Mhm.
One thing that's coming up is the Lodi. There's going to be a convention in Lodi. I think it's October, and it happens to be in the same location at the fairgrounds as the California Bluegrass Association meeting, fall campout. And we're planning to do a clinic, to offer a clinic at that convention on railroad songs, train songs. Most of you know I have a bluegrass band, and we specialize in train songs. And in June, I led a train songs jam in Grass Valley at the Model Train Museum there at the fairgrounds. And we had 60 people come to the train jam and sing train songs. We had a really good time. And so the clinic that we're thinking of planning is myself and the president of the board of directors, Ted Custer, and we're thinking of doing it on train songs, the history of train songs. And we're thinking maybe even to offer to have some music and to sing some train songs in the clinic. So that's something that we're kind of thinking of.
So here's the challenge, right? Joyce just suggested something. Unless somebody comes back and says, when I send out a thing, I send out a Coast email. I say, hey, we're going to do this event. I'm looking for clinicians. You guys have all seen those emails. Unless somebody responds to that email and says, hey, I can do a clinic, I have no way of knowing. I
Yeah.
don't remember. Other people have said, hey, I could potentially do a clinic on this. If I put a form, I guess the question is, for those of you, how many of you could do a clinic? Give me a hand. You can do a clinic. Got about 4 or 5 people. So, you know, one thing that we don't have, that we've never had, is basically a list of clinicians and clinics. I have that to some extent. I'm sorry, I have a terrier who's terribly excited to share my breakfast. And she's barking at me because she'd like to share my breakfast. So, we did this for layout tours, where we put together a database of all the layouts that we could find that were within the Coast Division, and even out into, a little bit into Sierra and more up into Red. We could do exactly the same thing for clinics. I tried to start doing that, but it's a process, it's work, and it would be, really good if I've sent emails, for example, to clinicians and said, hey, would you repeat your clinic either on this thing on a Saturday morning or at one of our events? And a lot of times I just don't get any response from people. So if I put a form up that was linked from the Coast Division website, Jer Ingram and I are going to work on the website and get it cleaned up here next week after the Alameda Fair. Would people put up their clinics on the form like you do for a convention? Enter and say, I could do a clinic on this, because that way, contact people and say, hey, are you going to come to the auction on this date? Could you do your clinic on that date at that time? I mean, the challenge is, for me, I call people. I have my core email group. A number of you are on it. I've sent emails out to just that group and said, hey, we need to have a clinic for this event. What I guess the question is there a better way to have a process to get this done than every time we have an event having to try to call around to people and beg for people to do a clinic? Because that's basically what it's become. And that's why we didn't have a clinic. And that's why we didn't have a clinic this last auction, because I had no one who's except for to do a clinic. Earl was, anyway, I'm sorry. I think it's a matter of people have to step up and say, I'm willing to both do a clinic, but also make it public. This is the clinic I'm willing to do.
Yeah.
Can you guys
Well,
hear me?
we'll have an event in Richmond in September. We can have at least 2 clinics, maybe 3 clinics for that event. If someone wants to do a clinic, and any kind of clinics, reasonable, send me an email. I'll send an email out and we'll get you on the agenda.
Sorry, I'm trying to raise my hand there, not a clap at you. Oh, now you're muted. I can't hear you.
Go ahead and just interrupt me.
Okay, well, I tried it.
My mic interrupted.
My mic wasn't working here before. I just had to unplug it and plug it back in. Hey, I just want to ask you a question. You're clearly very frustrated. And I mean, I've tried to run organizations before and dealt with that frustration. And the thing is, I wanted to just ask you this sort of clarifying question. Has it always been like this? Or was there a time when it was better? Because then I would be looking at like what you need to do, like what you've lost out of your organization, that things have gotten worse in terms of in terms of membership size or whatever it is that's driving that there's fewer people wanting to do clinics. Like, what has changed? Or has it always been like this? Has it always been frustrating?
I think 2 things have changed. I think one, our membership in any organization, you only get about 10% of the membership that volunteers to do anything.
Sure.
And
if you're lucky.
And the challenge is, if you look around this group of people, I would be willing to make a bet that everyone here has had a role in the past. So the problem we have is we have a lot of our members that basically are in the position, they say, I've already done that. I've done that. I did that 10 years ago. I was the, the clinic chair.
Right.
And the new members, the problem is the number of new members we're getting, which is a relatively small number. When you take the 10% of that, it's a very small number.
So I mean,
So
there's
I
your
think,
problem, right? There's your problem is let me just ramble on for less than a minute here.
sure.
There's this great book called Bowling Alone. It's a little bit controversial. I don't mean to get into the controversial part, but the basic point that it makes is that, and this book is from the 90s, right? This was already a trend back then. Civic organizations are dying. Participation in civic organizations like the Rotary, like model train clubs, etc., is going away. And somehow, and I'm maybe a little younger than the rest of you. I'm gray though, but like we need to find a way to get younger people involved in this hobby. And I know that's always been the challenge, but it just, I mean, you tell me. I'm in Utah, just to be clear, right? I'm just visiting this because I get your emails and I think it's a great little meeting here. But like, if I'm going to do a clinic, I'm going to do it virtually for you. But like what's the thing about new membership? Like, have you guys have you really thought about how to reach out to that younger crowd now?
So, yes, and no. We've done a reasonable job of recruiting at train shows and, using the rail pass, and we have a $10 PCR matching for the rail
Oh,
pass.
wow.
So if you look at new members, we probably in PCR signed up 120 to 150 new members in the last 3 years.
That's great.
Now, retention is a challenge, right? Because what happens is, we sign them up at a train show. We send their $20 in with their registration probably about a month later after the train show. Because when they sign up, we get their email immediately. So, like, if you sign up at a train show and you live in the Coast Division, you start getting Coast Extras. You get a welcome email the Monday after the train show. You start getting Coast Extras right away. We send their registration, and it takes about a month to go through the process of, sending money to Bob and having Bob send a check back and then getting that ready to mail into headquarters. It takes headquarters about another month to give them their membership. So your 9-month membership becomes about an 11-month membership. Personally, I like that because, that old thing about getting a little pregnant, right? I'd like to have them be exposed as long as possible to the values that we provide as an organization. The problem is when that 11 months expires and they get their new registration at $65, 50, 60, 70% of them don't sign up again.
Understood.
And that comes down to that our value proposition has to be sufficient. Having said that, when you look through those new members, they're not young people.
Right. Well, you're
and
getting them
that's
at train shows, right? Did I hear you right that you're getting those at the train shows?
mainly
Like,
at train. Yeah.
My wider
So-
question would be: Are you doing any marketing like on Facebook or any wider marketing to the internet about what you're doing? Like that specific offer about we'll pay $10 of your pass. Is that on a website somewhere?
No, we haven't done it on a website. We have our Facebook page. We do Facebook. I don't know that it's terribly enticing. Let's put it that way.
You need to get some kid to do a TikTok account for you. Find a 13-year-old that knows what TikTok is all about and have them do an account. I bet you would take off.
I would love to find a 13-year-old to do. Well, I can't find a 13-year-old because we can't work with them. So
you can't.
No, you have to be very careful when kids are under 18.
I guess California must have some laws about that or something.
Well, it's California and everywhere. I mean, we all know what happened to Boy Scouts.
Well, yeah.
And
That's sad. That's sad that that's driving a reason not to include.
No, it's a real issue. But I agree with you. Again, if someone stepped up and said, "Hey, I'd like to do this," I went, for example, in 2004 to almost every club in the Bay Area, and basically made them the offer to, join. Talked about the convention, and we got 2 or 3 new members at each of those meetings. But again, the young people that come like to the auction, I've talked to some of them. I just don't get anybody who wants to step forward and do anything.
Well, somewhere in your group, I bet you have an internet marketing whiz. I mean, I know enough to be dangerous, right? But like, I've never really run like a big ad campaign for a corporation or something like that. I'm not like that experienced. But and if I can help, give you any advice on that kind of side, I'd be happy to talk to you on the side. But I would just say somewhere in your group, there must be a bunch of high tech weenies out there in California that know this stuff that could volunteer. And I just don't know if you really think about it just sounds to me like you're preaching to the choir mostly and not advertising to the wider world. And there's got to be a lot of people out there that just don't know about you. Like I grew up in Los Altos, and I never knew about Niles Canyon until I moved away from California. And then here I am in Colorado and Utah, and I'm really into trains. And I'm like, I never saw Niles Canyon, you know? So like, I'm an idiot, you know, so I mean, there I was in Silicon Valley, and I just never knew what the railroad stuff that was out there. Now I do.
Well, one thing we're doing, and I don't know if this will be terribly helpful, but hopefully it should be a better on ramp. We're going to launch, and the email will probably go out next week. Michael, Ken, and I have worked together to. I'm sorry, I need to stop and move this dog out of the way. Michael, Eldridge, Ken, and I have been working on two things. One is we're going to open up the PCR calendar to any model railroad or rail fanning event in basically the PCR. So, you know, if your club is doing an open house, what you're going to be able to do is do an online form. It'll be on the website. There'll be an email that'll go out to all PCR members, and it'll go out to our friends of the PCR list, which James is on. Basically, you go on the form and you put your name, your contact info, you know, your email address, your phone number. What's the sponsoring organization? What's the name of the event? What a little description of it, time, location, and then is it a charge or no charge event? And the idea is Ken has volunteered. Ken's stepping up. He's volunteered that he will take on every Thursday. We're going to take any of those submissions and put them in the calendar. One of the goals of that is to have the PCR calendar be the definitive, what I will call railroad calendar for the area. So regardless of whether it's an NMRA event or, you know, a society of some other historical society event, a club event, a train show, we want to get all those things on one calendar so people can look at it and say, oh, this weekend, these things are going on. The hope is if you ever look at the calendar, if you go look at the PCR calendar on the website, it's not a separate calendar. It's kind of on the website. So when you go to look at it, you see we have a place to advertise next to it about other things that are going on. So, I mean, hopefully that will, as people begin to recognize that, oh, that's a great place to go, we'll get more people being aware of us. But you're absolutely right. Getting young people, and there are young people in the hobby. I mean, I've made a number of NMRA requests to the young, basically proposals for young people in the club I'm part of. And what you find is that I'm just not getting a positive reaction from them. A lot of the young people just don't see the benefit. They're not interested in coming to meetings, and other than that, they don't see any benefit. So, we focused very much when we did our marketing campaign back about 3 years ago. This has been about 3 years. A number of you have been involved. What we did is we stepped back and said two things. In order to convince people to join the NMRA, you have to do two things. You have to find them. You have to find a qualified prospect, and you have to have a proposition that includes a benefit value to the individual. So, what we did is we looked at it and we said, well, where can you meet model railroaders? The assumption, by the way, is if you're not already a model railroader, you're not going to join the NMRA. You have to become a model railroader first before you decide to join the NMRA. You don't join the NMRA to become a model railroader. Yeah. And so with that in mind, we said, where do you meet them? We said, to our mind, we can only figure out three places. One is train clubs. The second is hobby shops. And the third is train shows. We have two hobby shops in the Bay Area now, as far as I can tell, two railroad hobby shops. We did some things of putting some posters up there. I don't know that it did very much good. Like I said, we've gone to the clubs. We probably should make another round of the clubs, and go talk to the clubs about joining the NMRA. But the third place is the train shows. And, so what we did was we said then next, and those of you who haven't been there, we said, if you're a good marketeer, Uh, Basically, if you want to convince somebody to buy something, you need to have three benefits. If you're semi-incompetent, you get four. And the reason is people can't remember more than about three things. If you've ever been on a phone system where they've got the, dial one for this, what they tell all those people is you never have more than four choices. Because the problem is people will listen to the first choice, they don't know if that's what they really want to do. And by the time they get to the third or fourth choice, they can't remember the first one. So they get confused. So, what we did was we sat down and we said, what are the benefits of NMRA membership? And we said the first benefit is learning. It's you can learn at clinics, you can talk to the clinician, you can get feedback, you can ask questions, you get other modelers to help you. The second benefit was inspiration. You can go see great layouts, you can see great models at a contest, you can become excited. The third was the friendships you develop, and the fourth was the savings that you get through the discount program. So that's kind of what we've been marketing on for the past, I don't know, 3 years, 3.5 years. And it's been reasonably successful, but it's, like I said, it's just not generating the young people. So clearly, those four benefits don't seem to appeal a lot to young people. Though we do get some young people. We had probably, what, 3 or 4 young people at the auction? Jesse, how many young people were there?
At the auction, I think there were close to 3 or 4, but in speaking to your about young people and that sort of stuff, I did I don't know, whichever one or the other Great Train Show was, a couple of them. And one of the things that I learned at the Great Train Show was we actually did sign up 3 kids. Now, you can't sign up kids. So we ended up signing up the kids' mom or dad or something like that. The kid was thrilled. He was jumping up and down. One of the reasons, by the way, was it was show and tell, had nothing to do with benefits or anything like that. He said, "Oh, wow, is that neat?" And I let them tear apart the little diorama I made. Yeah, you can touch this. I don't know how many of those adults or kids and adults were followed up. I know Jim Reinecke he took money, he filled out forms for these people, but there was no follow-up for, let's call it, a youth group as such, because there is no such thing as a youth group in model railroading. It's a youth group's parents that get the members in. But that's not here or there. The point is that what Phil is saying is really important, in that part of the recruiting is latching on to people when they can see things at the train show and that sort of stuff. So, I've always felt. I mean, many of us, particularly, God, we remember when we had 1,400 Coast members. Now we've got 8. And I don't know, I just, I don't know what the answer is for Phil. And Phil, in terms of the clinic stuff, you and I'll help kick off this clinic foolishness, the clinic chair business, because I've given a bunch of clinics, write articles for the stupid newsletter, and that sort of thing. This is a bookkeeping activity to start, and bookkeeping, unfortunately, I'm sort of good at.
Oh, don't admit that.
I just want to bring on one thing that on the 27th of June, I was attended for maybe 6 hours or 7 hours at the Bay Area prototype modelers meeting in a rather obscure church in Kensington, up in the hills. And there were over 200 people attended that, and about half of them were under 40. They're
Where was this, Ken? When?
place, excuse me, every inch of display space in the thing was taken. And they were pretty much overwhelmed with the number of people who showed up. There were 2 clinics, including an excellent one on designing shelf layouts, and it, but all presented by young people.
Well, I think
None of these people are in the NMRA. Or
I
most of them.
Now, what was the name of the organization?
Most of them like model railroading.
No, what was the name of the people, the organization that?
This was the prototype modelers, right?
Yeah. BAPM.
Yeah.
So I think Ken actually brings up another problem. And these, by the way, none of these are just our problems. They are general problems. You know, 2 things have happened, and I think one was kind of always there. The other is actually fairly new. You know, there are a lot of what I will call, for lack of a better word, subset organizations in our hobby. The prototype modelers is a good example. Dave is very familiar with the narrow gauge convention. So if you're a narrow gauge modeler, the narrow gauge convention is more interesting to you than the NMRA convention, because 70% of the content at the national NMRA convention, 80% is not going to be narrow gauge focused. If you go to the narrow gauge convention, it's 100% narrow gauge focus. So if you're a narrow gauge focused modeler, that's a much more interesting event. The prototype modelers is kind of the same way. If you're very interested in just building models of train engines and rolling stock, and more focused on modern equipment, that is a place where you get a lot more content than you do coming to one of our events, where we have an event and it's a clinic, Ken talking about the historical structure of a railroad that was 70 years ago. For someone who's a prototype modeler, that's not interesting. So that fracturing organizationally. I think it used to be the NMRA was kind of a singular organization. There's a lot more what I'll call fractional organizations now. The other thing that's happened, and I think this is something that's hard for us to understand to some extent, almost culturally, is young people feel included in a group without physically being involved with anyone. So, they join a Facebook group. If you go on Facebook, how many model railroad Facebook groups are there with lots of people? And so, it used to be you'd bring your models to a regional or, a divisional event, and people would look at them, comment. Now you post your models on a Facebook page, and the 1,000 people on the Facebook page comment on it in real time. And so, one of the big challenges we have is that the competition for kind of thoughtfulness. And of course, the big challenge with Facebook is it's free. And you can be in 5 different groups. So, I think, unfortunately, these are just things that we're having to deal with generally at the hobby level and quite frankly, I don't know how to resolve them. It's because I'm on Facebook groups and I see exactly what's happening there.
Yeah, Phil, I'm not a Facebook user, but I do have some insights as to how things are going. You know TSG Multimedia, right?
Yep.
So TSG and John Abeticola, they've got somewhere around 17,000 viewers for their shows and things. They also run a Patreon thing because they're supported by donations on that. They've got fewer than 200 people contributing to the success of this, but they've got 1,600,000 people that are willing to absorb the stuff for free, which they do, we have the same situation. The narrow gauge and short line Gazette, bet year over year, you've got declining subscriptions on that. Same thing with model railroader, Craftsman, everything else. And what the rise of the internet has everything to do with that, because you can now find stuff, you can get connected, you can do that. You never have to leave the comfort of your own home. You don't have to get involved in politics, and it doesn't cost anything. All you've got to have is a PC or a phone, and you're in business. And this is what I think that we're fighting against, and I don't think we're ever going to return to the good old days. So I think one of the things we're going to have is generations of people that are going to miss out on personal interaction. Is
And
working through the internet, and trading barbs or something like that is not personal interaction. There's no skin in the game. You don't get to know the person. You don't build ties that bring you back. I've been to probably 25, 30 national narrow gauge conventions. I've been to 3 NMRA conventions for the reason you cited, Phil. If I'm going to spend the money, I want to get the most bang for my buck, and that's narrow gauge as opposed to
right.
the national. And I've just recently I've been in the NMRA since 1973, and I did that so I could go to the Seattle convention in 1973 on that. And I've just hung on to my membership ever since because I thought standards were a good thing. I thought they did good stuff for the hobby, but I really haven't got engaged with anything until the last year and a half or so on that, because my health doesn't permit me to travel and do all the things I used to. So I thought, well, I better go local and see what's happening on the local level. So here I am, and that's what we've got. I don't know how we're going to attract more people. I think
Well,
the internet and everything out there is such a big suck, and it is so low cost entry that why bother with an organization that's going to charge me a lot of money and isn't right up my alley? I can find anything I want for free on the internet.
well, and again, that's why, having that benefits, you got to think about why do you want to
Yep.
do this and spend the money. By the way, there are 2 other programs tried to get these started, but again, it's a challenge. If you guys remember, after the last convention, there was an email, PCR email that came out that said, we'd like folks to sign up to be a mentor.
Mhm.
So the idea is, we get 5 new members to the Coast Division. What happens to those 5 new members? You join the NMRA, you're a new
Interesting. I
member.
never saw that email.
It went out. It did. So the problem is you join the NMRA, you get a nice email welcoming you, you get the Coast Extras, but that's really it. And so what I was hoping we could do is get someone to sign up and pick a county. It was going to be based on counties. Walther signed up down
Mhm.
in Daylight for, so somebody says, hey, in Alameda County, anyone who signs up in Alameda County, I'll give them a call. I'll find out, hey, you're an N scale modeler. Hey, let me introduce you to these guys. You really need to go see this layout. You need to do this. Someone who can kind of be an on ramp. Because coming back to what Dave said, the key to this organization is really finding value in what we do. But I think
Mhm.
more importantly, finding value in the people that are in the organization. And I will tell you, from when I joined the NMRA, I mean, in all probability, if they had not asked me to become superintendent, I probably wouldn't be in the NMRA. I found it to be a generally very unfriendly place when I joined. I mean, you show up at a meeting, no one talks to you, no one takes you around and introduces you to other people. You're basically just there. And by the way, we are a clique. And we have lots of cliques. When you go to a meeting, what do? You talk to all your friends, and it's a closed group. And somebody's standing there, and there are 5 closed groups. They're not part of anyone. No one comes over and says, "Hi, oh, you're new. You're a new person. Let me introduce you." So one of the things that and there was the idea of sign up for this, become a mentor. The other thing that you know I was another one. I can't remember it now. I get so, tried a number of these things. Oh, the other one is that, we've done these field trips. I mean, I know a number of you have gone. We went to Niles Canyon. We went to the Redwood Valley. We did one at Roaring Camp. Um, you know, it would be great to do a trip to Ardenwood. So how does that happen today?
Mm-hmm.
How have all of those events happened in the last 5 years?
Phil put them together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I have
Yes.
asked repeatedly for people that says, the best one was Redwood Valley because John Cockle's son works at Redwood Valley, and John asked his son to help me put it together, and it was relatively easy to put it together.
Yeah.
But if you're a member of another organization and say, hey, people would like to come here, just send an email and say, Phil, hey, I'd like to organize to have a field trip to Ardenwood, Niles Canyon, whatever the organization is. Bart, if you have an in anywhere, say, hey, I'd like to do that. Because, I cannot tell you how many emails I've sent to the guys at Bart trying to arrange to get a tour at Bart so we could have a Saturday tour. Because again, those are the things that people value. Coming back to, what and is it James or Joseph that you got both names there?
I go by Jim, actually. Sorry,
Jim. Okay. Sorry.
This is actually my work account, so that's my official name.
That's cool. That's cool. Like Jim said, when he was in the Bay Area, he didn't do any of those things. That's one of the things I like the idea of. You sign up, you get your rail pass, and all of a sudden you get this email that says, hey, would you like to go to Niles Canyon? We're going to do a tour of the Niles Canyon shops. And you go and you see the Niles Canyon shops. And I don't know if anybody was on that tour. We did. It was a great tour. It was a great opportunity to see things. I mean, we have members that are part of those things versus me starting off by trying to call the organization out of the blue and say, hey, can we set up to do this? And by the way, those organizations love to do it. The tour we did at the Ironworks down in Sunnyvale, which I think a number of folks were on. So, those things, the challenge is we need to have a few more folks step up and say, hey, I'll do a few of those things. I think the kids program's great. If we had someone interacting, by the way, just as a side, Sydney has been doing the role of follow up on membership, kind of as a membership chair. And I think she's pretty much decided she can't do that any longer and has to focus on the business. Obviously, as Dave said, they're challenged in what they do for income. So, that's another area we really need some help in. Because what happens is I find an awful lot of members don't, kind of forget that they need to re-sign up. So
maybe, Phil, what we need is a clinic on establishing and managing interpersonal relationships. The
That's
other
right.
thing is we need a database of extroverts because those are the folks that are going to go out and find other people.
Right.
Us introverts probably aren't.
Right. Well, if you raise your hand, like I said, what Jesse's saying about the clinic, anybody raise their hand, we'll, work it out. And like I said, we have a database of everything. We can keep everything. So, anyway.
As Joyce probably would know, if I raise my hand, my wife keeps thinking that we could put a lightning bolt above this computer screen. So when I raise my hand, I get hit by lightning and put my hand down.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Tomorrow there is an open house at the Bay Area Garden Railway Society Baggers, where there will be lots of kids and young people, and it's at a home in Marin County in San Rafael. I'm hoping to go to that. If my husband's been ill, and if he's better, I hope to go to it. If I have your permission, I can talk to some of the people there. And if any of you want to go, you could come as my guest. The layout is outdoors, but the people that do it have spent thousands and thousands of hours. It's a really impressive layout, and they make little what do you call them? Like roof tiles wooden for all of their houses, and their
Shakes,
houses are just immaculately
Jingles.
made,
shingles,
just
shakes. Yeah.
really impressive. So if any of you would like to come, raise your hand now, and if I go tomorrow, I'd be glad to meet you there.
I actually had a quick question for Joyce. What's your band name? Are you on YouTube or anything?
Yeah, I have a band, freshpickedband.com.
Okay, cool.
That's my band's website. I also have a band website on Facebook, Fresh Picked Band, with Joyce Hennessy. And we have train songs. We have my model layout is on my band's website. How many of you think that the train song clinic is interesting? How many of you might go?
I don't know if my vote
I
counts,
can't
so I'm
raise
going to
my
keep my hand
hand.
down.
Yeah.
I'm in Utah, so I'm not sure if my vote really counts. So I'm not. I'd be interested if it was virtual, but I wouldn't show up for it.
And would it be more appealing if it were singing or if it were a historical review?
Oh, I think both.
Okay.
I would personally say that like I don't like going to events where I'm pressed into interactivity, and so I would just put a vote against the singing and more for the historical review just for balance there. But like for example, I go to the Heber Valley Railroad out here, and they always want to like sing at you and get you involved in dancing and having fun. I'm like, I just want to sit here on the train, okay? Leave me alone.
Okay.
I
And is
actually
anybody interested in the event tomorrow?
doesn't sound like it. That's
That's
Okay.
kind of last minute for people to
Yeah,
go
and
that far, probably.
I think one of the things, Joyce, that, again, going back to the calendar thing, that hopefully we can get, and, I've tried a couple of times to have some interactions with the baggers folks about how do we do things more closely together. I think the calendar is one of the things that can allow that, right? Because, if that event had been on the calendar, then, people would have known about it in advance and could have planned for it if they had the time and were able to go. And again, I think that's one of the ways we can help build the community, and maybe that will increase people's desire to be interactive with, it part of our community.
Well, if you have that calendar set up and it gets indexed by Google, then you're going to be getting, people searching for those events are potentially going to see your website, in the search results, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Well, Baggers is similar to the NMRA, and it's membership based. So the calendar goes out to the members. But if we were to combine with them and share our membership or share our calendar somehow, I think that would be great.
So just so everyone knows, this is basically what the calendar looks like. You see, I think I've got this bigger than. It'll be
No, it's
easier
good.
to see
It's
it.
good.
That's
Yeah.
easier to see it like this. So, Ken and I started adding on events last week or yesterday. I guess it was yesterday we did, or Thursday we did the Thursday or yesterday. I don't remember. But anyway, you'll notice that there's the Euro West train show at Hiller here that's now been added on. Our Coast virtual meetups are on here. And if you go way down to the bottom, you got to go quite a ways down. You'll find there's actually the Great Train Show in Pleasanton in December. So eventually we'll get all of these, I think we can eventually get all of the events on a calendar. Let me see. I think we can do month here. So you can see it by month. But you'll notice that this is on the web page. So one of the things that I work with Michael on, this is more from a PCR. This is not the Coast. I don't see any reason to have a separate Coast calendar. It doesn't make any sense to me to manage two calendars, a PCR and a Coast calendar, put it all on the PCR calendar. We do get this space over here. So I think one of the things we may start doing is try to have on this page, so why do you want to become an NMRA member? Maybe something about recent events or something that would cause people to say, whoa, that sounds interesting. Maybe I should join that. Jim, I thought your comment was really interesting, was, do some sort of PCR, join the NMRA for a rail pass for $10. The only challenge we have there is we have to make sure their PCR regional, because we occasionally
Yeah.
get people, like I said, from other regions, and it's not a big deal, but
No, that's understood. Yeah, you want people local because you're a local. I mean, it sounds like you currently, as constituted, are an in-person group. I mean, that's your main focus. I would suggest that you need to transition to be more virtual, offer more virtual events over time. I mean, like this is great, right? Where anybody could come in and see what you guys are talking about.
yep.
So,
Well,
I can I ask a really heretical question real quick though? This is something that I think that you may need to embrace in the future, and I don't know if people are going to like this or not. But what do people think about train sims, about the video games where people, simulate? They're not really model railroaders, right? Because they're not actually physically building a railroad, but they're still interested in trains.
Mhm.
And I just always thought that there's like a need to reach out to that crowd and try to get them into model railroading too. There's probably a lot of people in that train sim crowd that are ripe for the picking. But you probably all hate train sims, right? I would assume that's like heresy for me to even ask about it, or
No,
no? Well, see, I emailed the president of the NMRA and their office wherever it was back in Arkansas or wherever, and I got no answer from them. I just simply asked them like, is there any room in your group for virtual modelers? And I got like no answer. And I don't know. Everybody I've asked about it just doesn't really seem to think it's a good idea. But
Well, I'll speak to that, Jim. My grandson is coming. It seems like forever in moments here. He's going to be here. And one of my big desires in life is what we used to call kinetic activities.
yeah.
It does not involve an electronic screen. And yes, I think the train sims are great. I've played them, and I think that they're
Oh, well.
really interesting, and they're a good learning experience if you do that. But the last thing I want them to do, I want them to play with trains. I want them to build Legos. I want them to make these things.
Sure.
And
No,
that's
understood.
how I feel. Now,
Oh, wait, we just lost you there. You just got quiet for me.
Yeah.
you didn't miss
Yeah.
anything.
His mic cut out, or was it just me?
No,
No.
he cut off
Yeah.
volume. Jesse, you're not being heard. Your
You
audio
said something
went
really
away.
brilliant, but we couldn't hear you.
Yeah.
Well, can you
There we
hear
are.
me?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Yeah. Okay.
We never got to show and tell during
Oh,
this
wow.
meeting.
Do you guys wrap up here at 11? I got another meeting I'm supposed to jump into, but I got a few minutes if you're going to do more.
Yeah.
does anybody
No,
have any
I just
interesting modeling to discuss? We didn't talk about modeling. By the way, I'm not going to put this up on YouTube.
well,
I don't see any reason to
No.
make this a public discussion. Just FYI.
Sure.
So don't expect to see it on YouTube. I will just leave it off of YouTube.
Can I-
I think it's a good discussion because it's all of our frustrations coming out in an interesting way, and I think it's good. That's one of the nice things. Yeah, Jim, we've done virtual conventions.
Yeah.
From a PCR perspective.
Yeah. Well, in alongside the physical one, right?
Right, we've done
Yes.
done basically a hybrid convention.
Yeah, I've attended those. Those are great.
The last one, the group that organized it didn't want to do that. They kind of have an opposition to it. I'm assuming we will probably do another hybrid virtual part of the event in Sierra next year, and then in Coast the year after that.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, the question is, should we try to have a bigger virtual event? And I'm just not sure. I'm just not sure what kind of attendance we'll get.
It depends on how you market it, right? And what kind of budget. I mean, $20 in Facebook ads can go a long way.
Yeah.
I mean, you get a lot of impressions, and you just pay for the click-throughs, and it's let me just ask that. It sounds like we got to wrap up here, but do you have anybody in the group that's like a Facebook ads expert or an internet marketing expert?
We may very well have someone, but are they a known entity is another question.
Yeah. Well, you may want to cast a net there and see what you get. I would be happy to help you out. I have a few hours here and there I can throw into things. I'm not retired yet, but I got time.
Yeah.
I don't have kids, right? So
Yeah.
Yeah. So
one quick question, please. Do any of you know who are the people in charge of the Lodi convention?
Lodi convention?
I have no idea what the Lodi convention is. So
There is supposed to be an NMRA convention in Lodi in October.
Sierra Division?
It's not an NMRA convention.
Maybe
But it's
PCR. I don't know.
not a PCR. I don't think it's a PCR event.
No.
It's a
It's not an
convention.
RPM event.
What event would it be?
I have no idea.
Oh, the load. I saw an email on that. Um, it's like the Coast Auction type. It's like the Coast Auction. It's a local activity, at least the way I read it.
Okay, you and I should get
PSR.
together, Jesse. Jesse, you and I should get together off screen and figure this out.
Can I ask Phil real quick? Phil, is that you on LinkedIn as what are you listed as? I thought I found you on LinkedIn as an innovative change consultant. Innovative change consultant.
Yeah, that's
me.
me.
Do you ever check LinkedIn? Can I reach you there?
I do. Not as much anymore. I am retired, so
Yeah.
I don't pay as much attention to it anymore. That was back from when I was more involved in trying to make money.
Yeah.
What's the way to get a hold? What's the way to get a hold of you? I gotta jump for another meeting here.
I'll throw my email in the chat. Hang on.
Oh, okay, cool.
Let me just do that. It's I can just type correctly.
I can never type in front of people. Is my problem. PEDHome@pkeconsulting.com.
Yeah,
Great.
Phil Edholm, last name's EDHOLM. So
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, I just wanted to pick your brain a little more sometime. You seem really frustrated. I can appreciate frustrated people because
I let the frustration come out now. It doesn't come out until people start saying, why aren't we doing this?
Yeah.
Why aren't we doing that? Why aren't
Right.
we doing this?
Yeah.
You need to do this. We need to do that.
Mhm.
And that becomes very frustrating after you hear it about 30 times. And people think that by making that statement, they're making a great contribution. And the question always is, do you think nobody ever thought of what you think should be done? And that the reason people are doing it is not doing it is they're just stupid. And that's generally not the reason.
Well,
no, and I think that probably 9 out of 10 requests are like that. Where they're not they're suggesting something you've already thought of, but don't hunker down too much, right? Like don't forget.
Oh no, we're
that,
not.
Don't forget that 1 in 10 is going to be a good suggestion.
Yep. Well, and I think that, like I said, one of the things that one of the things actually I'm going to do, it's on my agenda to do next week after, I'm doing the train, the Alameda County Fair has been this last 4 weekends, and this is the last weekend of that. So that becomes, basically every day, about 4 days a week, it becomes a 6-7 hour activity. When that ends, one of the things we want to do is set up our Richmond September meetup. And once we get that done, that'll be good. But it'd be great to have an event if someone knows of a great field trip event, a Niles Canyon kind of thing. Would anybody be interested in going to Ardenwood as a place, visiting the Ardenwood, the SPCRR guys there? That's another one that, that's one where I do know some folks, and I can talk to Jackie and see if we can set something up there. That, because those kind of things to me are a lot of fun, where you go get that kind of inside look at things. So cool. Well, has anybody been doing any modeling? Let's talk about real modeling. Let's talk about something that's not so yeah. Well, I mean, it's good, it's important, but it just sure is challenging.
Well, I got to drop out at this point. So nice seeing everybody. It's a great group you got here. Just keep it alive. It's a fun thing.
Okay,
Thanks.
Jim.
See y'all.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. Look forward to seeing you again.
Well, I've been counting rivets.
Oh, there you go.
I'm actually putting the rivets on a flat car. One of my models of the first of the series of models of Milwaukee 50-foot cars that were used to transport tanks from the U.S. Tank arsenal in Detroit area and in this case, Oakland Pier for shipment to Korea. And this is one of my moments in history that I'm modeling is a shipment of tanks on cars, flat cars
Mhm.
that are specifically within that time frame and type of car that would be used for this shipment, or if I have photographic evidence of them being used, I'll use that to model.
Cool.
So anyway, that's where I am. It's tanks for the memories.
Yes.
Thanks, you're welcome.
And I have a great photo that goes with the exhibit. 1954, Marilyn Monroe visited the troops, and she's coming out of the tank commander's hatch of an M46. And I model M46s, of course,
Yeah.
because that was the standard US tank going to Korea.
All right.
And I also have a little bit of a background. I spent 19 months in the 3rd Armored Division in Germany.
Oh,
If you guys want, I'll share something real quick here. So one of the things I'm doing is I'm taking my modules and building a layout in my former game room, and one of the things I'm doing is making that so it can be operational. It's ON30.
hmm
So one of the things that I've been doing is doing cars. So these are, let me see, that's actually not the photo I wanted to show first. I don't know how that one got up there first. I wanted to put this one first. So these are Bachmann freight cars, or excuse me, stock cars. And what I realized was that there was room to put a railroad name, but there was no room for the details and for a number. So what I did was I went back, and you can see I added on a little piece of styrene for the number and the data plate for each of the cars. And then what I've done is Richard Brennan actually I designed these up in Inkscape, and he printed them for me on his Alps printer. So we actually have a whole sheet of numbers and lettering for cars. So these are the cars painted. They're a little shiny because they're painted with gloss coat, but I've been using just Rust-Oleum, the red primer. It works out really well as a generic boxcar color. Since boxcar colors varied pretty dramatically, um, it's pretty reasonable. So you can kind of see there. They're done. Didn't take any pictures of them. One of the things, by the way, you'll notice here is I printed. These are 3D printed on a
Yep.
filament printer. Little holders that you screw onto the cars. These cars have a removable frame. Take the frame off, screw these holders on, and they can be used through the process of painting and lettering and weathering. One of the things I find is I bought those food service gloves. They sell them at Costco for cheap. The ones they use at Subway when they make your sandwich, and they work out great because you put that on your left hand, and then when you spray paint, you don't get paint all over yourself.
Yeah.
So last thing I wanted to share is these were fun and good. This last one's not very fun and good. This is actually a layout. Joe Hendrickson down in Morgan Hill. He was an ON30 modular guy, part of the CCC. This picture was actually taken as we started. This was his layout in his garage. I'll have a video I can show fairly shortly. Number of fixed modules, and then number of removable modules that used to go to shows, and then a couple of big fixed modules back here in the back. And I'll just walk you through this. So this was 3 hours. So basically everything went in a trailer. We're taking it down, and we're going to go through it in about a week and a half, a couple of weekends. Go through it, but you can see all the modules that went in there. And this was the end of about 3 hours. I mean, you kind of see everything was gone. So, that actually brings up another challenging issue we have, which is the number of layouts we have is decreasing.
Mm-hmm.
We've lost, if you think about it, since the last convention we had, I think we've lost 3 or 4 fairly significant layouts. Dave Park's layout, Ted Stevenson's layout. We're going to lose Jack Burgess's layout. We lost
Yeah.
the
Bob
S-scale
Brown,
layout, and now
Bob
Bob
Brown's layout,
Brown's
Bob
layout.
Brown,
Chris
yeah.
Lombo's layout. Yeah, just a
Yep.
number
So
of them.
we've lost four or five layouts over the last
Yeah.
literally 2 years since
Yeah.
2024. So that's one thing that, one of the things I hear sometimes people say, oh, somebody's building a layout. Definitely, if anybody hears about somebody building a layout, send me an email with the contact info, because
Mhm.
then I can get them into the database and we can ask them to be open next time we have an event in the area.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's kind of a sad thing. Joe's in long-term care, and his
Yeah.
family's, just clearing out the house because they know
Mhm.
that, um, you know,
Yeah.
you're kind of the point you're at. So,
Yep.
and I don't know, I didn't get a slide made up for this. We didn't do a slide, and since I'm not going to put this up, I don't know if everybody heard about Bob Ferguson. Bob Ferguson passed a
Oh.
couple of days ago, so
Hmm.
he's been in and out of the hospital and had issues. His son was here. Wayne had come out and was out here when we did the auction.
Hmm.
Yeah, I saw him.
And Bob, he sent an email out a few days ago saying that Bob was going to go home into you know basic home care,
Mhm.
and that he just sent an email out that Bob
And
passed.
passed.
So,
Hey, Dave, those were the good old days.
oh yeah, it's unfortunate, all unfortunate.
Yep.
But we
Oh,
all have had a good run. That's the good news.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I'm going to comment. I don't have anything to show for my latest project, but it's a kit I obtained from the Bob Brown estate on that of a derelict C-16. With any kind of luck, I'll have it painted by that. Essentially, what it is a cannibalized locomotive. It's a piece of scenery, not something that works. It was a kit that was put out by Dale Darney and the V&T shops years ago, and then reissued by the Whistle Stop Depot, still using the V&T instructions and everything else. And so Bob had that version. It was one of the many kits he obtained that he never built. So if I don't know, it said there weren't many items at the PCR auction. I can tell you we had literally thousands of items that trying to move those at the couple of estate sales we had for Bob Brown. That was amazing. At this point, um, just about everything has been spoken for. The only thing left upstairs is really bench work. Um, the San Diego Railroad Museum, basically, Charlie decided with a donation thing that they were willing to display part of Bob's legacy. And so they came up in 2 weeks, 2 weeks ago. Yeah, we helped them load up a big U-Haul truck full of all kinds of things and take it down there. And they're going to be putting that through their rotating displays and things, which is going to be good on that. So the good news is that the only thing that's going to go in the dumpster is probably bench work,
Good.
which is
did they ever get rid of the switch stand?
yes, oh yes. There was a gentleman that was interested in that, and he and his son came down, and we helped them wrestle it into the back of their Bronco, and away they went. So they were
Okay,
happy
yeah,
getting a hold of the switch stand.
yeah.
Yeah, so it was yeah, that was a good deal. So I know Charlie's really happy with the way things have pretty much ended up, and he thinks that we've pretty much been able to meet Bob's wishes for what he wanted to have happen with his railroad collection, which was considerable, and that's just good. Um,
I I have to say, Bob, the there's a business model that I always appreciated, which is the business model of being in between two groups of people, a group of people who want something and a group of people that can provide it. I mean, if you
Hmm.
look at Windows and Microsoft, developers versus customers,
Yep.
the good guys, the car show, people pay to bring their car in and show it, and people pay to
Yeah.
come look at it.
Yeah.
And they're in the middle collecting money from both sides. So I've always thought those were brilliant business models. I think Bob had, for a model railroader, the singular most brilliant business model,
Yeah.
because the narrow gauge Gazette, if you made a product that was within the
Yeah.
community that might be interested,
Hmm.
you sent Bob a product on
Yeah.
the off hope that he or Charlie or someone else would build it and put it in the Gazette for you.
Yeah.
So he had a pipeline to basically almost any
Yeah.
product he ended up getting. And a lot of them, like you said, he never got around to building or
Right.
didn't find somebody to build. But, it was pretty
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead,
yeah.
Dave.
Yeah. I ended up picking another kit, and this was a kit that Bob did review in the Gazette. It was the Grizzly Flats Depot, if you're familiar with Ward Kimball and that, and it's now down
Yeah.
Southern California. But yeah, Bob built the front facade of that, and then he lost interest in the kit, and he put everything back in the box. So when I was doing the inventory of things with Charlie down there, I found this, and I said, I want to get this out of Bob's collection. So that's another thing that I'll be working on one of these days is completing that kit. The best part about it is I went back and I read his Gazette review on that, and he told me exactly the paint colors he used on the facade. So one of them I have, the other is float wheel mud, which has changed a whole lot in the last 40 years, and is no longer obtainium. So I'm going to have to mix and match
I,
that. But I'm looking forward to it. It's been fun building legacy kits here for a bit, and then I've
yep.
got to get back to my SP caboose and finally finish that up. So hopefully I'll have more to contribute to our modeling on the coast one of these days.
By the way, if you guys are interested, I'll share one more. This is another picture of some cars. So, like I said, I've done
Yeah,
about 40 cars in the last month or so. So these are, again, Bachmann box cars. These I didn't even paint. I decided not to paint them, and just basically did the lettering directly on
hmm,
the car. This actually, the logo here, which you'll see better in another picture, was generated in PowerPoint and then moved over into Inkscape. So kind of,
oh, cool.
kind of replicating the SPC. If you ever seen the SPC box cars that Bachmann sells, kind of doing the same thing. And that's kind of what they look like after they get weathered and are ready to get
Yeah.
put back together.
Well,
So
looks like the SP Sunset Herald and also the Pacific Coast Herald,
exactly, that was
which
the
we
intent.
shouldn't give up for the bar in the four dots.
No, it's so yeah, I've been pretty. I'm now to the point where I think I have all the cars I need,
Good.
and my next step is to do. I'm going to go ahead and just try to do use car cards.
Hmm.
So I've got the computer, the program all set up to generate those, and I actually bought the paper to do it and the labels to do it, and just got to do that. That's my next home project. So hopefully I'll be able to have a little operating session here probably probably in
Hmm.
August
Yeah.
after the NMRA convention.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so is anybody else going to the NMRA convention? I put something up on the PCR groups.io and got a few responses there, but seems like not a lot of folks are going to Chattanooga. So,
Hmm.
like Dave said, it becomes an expensive trip today,
Yep.
especially. Um, Anyway, well, I guess
Eh,
that probably brings this. This was not a very happy meeting, but I guess that's life. But I agree with the sentiment, guys. I worry a lot about our membership. So anyway, We want to call it a day.
Oh,
We'll
I think
see-
so.
See everyone in 2 weeks.
Yep.
And we will have our get together then. Talk to you all later.
All right.
Bye
Okay.
now.
Thanks all.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.